Boerne Radio 103.9 FM. Coming up at 11:30 is The Power of Perseverance with Glenn Boehm. But right now is Ceasefire with Dale Adams and Ron Cisneros. The following is sponsored by the Boerne Bookshop, and this is Boerne Radio.
Welcome to Ceasefire, where civics meets civility and engagement meets empowerment. Ceasefire is hosted by former Boerne ISD trustee and owner of the Boerne Bookshop, Dale Adams, and by former Boerne City Council member and local insurance agent, Ron Cisneros.
Welcome to Ceasefire. My name is Dale Adams.
And I'm Ron Cisneros.
And this is brought to you by the Boerne Bookshop. And today we've got a really neat topic. We've done it this once or twice, and it's a bit of a game. Ron does not know what we're talking about, and I'm going to tell him.
Boy, that's the truth.
He's a little nervous, but it's not going to be anything too weird. Don't worry.
All right.
One thing, Ron, you'd like to talk about is people staying informed.
Yeah.
When they come talk to the city council and they talk about an issue, they should know what they're talking about. The question today is, what does that mean to be informed? What do you mean by that? How far down the rabbit hole should people go to be, quote, an informed citizen? Now, one thing that pops into my mind is everybody, at the minimum as an informed citizen, should know who they vote for. We can probably all assume that's a good one. Do you know any of those judges that you vote for? I don't.
I know only a handful of them, but I honestly do take the time to go and do research on all the judges, and I still don't feel like I can get enough information. Like when we're talking about, I'm not talking about district judge here because I know her really well. Yeah. But when we talk about those state judges, those Court of Appeal judges, I remember the last time I did this, I could find enough good information and enough bad information on every single candidate that I couldn't make a decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does it even mean to be informed? How far should we expect people to go down that? I think it's, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. And so that's what I want to talk about.
Okay.
How far and how do you do it?
Okay. I would say there are a couple of thoughts that are coming to mind. I'm already thinking of my counterpoint, so I need to slow my brain down here. I think the first thing that I mean when I talk about being informed is having a basic understanding of how government operates. So we did a show not too long ago on the separations of power. So I want to say first, have a basic understanding of the federal government and how it operates. Understand the executive branch and its proper role, the judicial branch and its proper role, and the legislative branch and its proper role. And the reason I keep saying its proper role is because none of them are exercising within the means of their proper roles. Not today. Yeah. The legislative branch comes up with vague laws and then pretty much lets the executive branch decide how it should be interpreted.
All right.
And then the judicial branch depends on if it's led by conservatives or the left. I don't know that there's really much truth there anymore.
Yeah.
It's just who's in charge determines the ruling that you get.
Yeah.
But back to your question, I'd say let's start there. Let's start with understanding the proper role of your federal government, how it should operate.
In a broad sense, not necessarily what all the sub-departments are under the Department of Homeland Security, right?
Correct. And to do that, I think first you've got to have rooted in you a political philosophy, right? Something that you believe. So I don't care what that is. You're a socialist, a conservative, a libertarian, but have a political philosophy. Believe in something, right? Yeah. Then go out and get an understanding of how your federal government operates. Get a basic understanding. I don't need you to be a professor of history, but get a basic understanding of how your state government operates. You'd be shocked at how many Texans do not know that the state house operates every other year.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that think that our House of Representatives are always in session.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, we got this really cool system where they can only screw with your life every other year for about 90 days. And then they go home and they can't jack with you again for another well over a year. It's great.
Yeah.
And then have an understanding of your county government and, if appropriate, if you live in a city, your city government.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you'll find and I don't mean this in an ugly way, but that's where you'll find the most ignorance. And when I say ignorance, I don't mean people are stupid. They're just unaware. Mm-hmm. So they have a basic understanding of the federal government. They have no idea how much impact in their lives is coming from their city government.
Yes, you've mentioned that a lot, and it's true. People assume all these powers by the federal government. They don't realize that it's the city that's actually does everything.
Right.
Yeah.
The road that you drive on in Boerne, I'm glad I said roads, because in Boerne we have quite a few state highways running through our city. And a lot of folks don't understand how TxDOT operates. They don't understand the difference between a state highway and a city road. And why don't you fix Blanco Road, right? The city can't. It's not their road. It belongs to the great state of Texas.
Right.
So TxDOT decides if you get traffic light there. They decide what the setbacks are. They decide all manner of things, right? So understanding these things can prevent you from getting on Facebook and saying stupid things.
Yeah.
It can prevent you from calling up or emailing your local councilman and calling him a buffoon because he didn't put a traffic light on Blanco Road. Real life example, when I was on council, I got a letter from an individual who lived out at Tapatio Springs. Tapatio Springs is in Kendall County, but it's not in the city of Boerne. And he wrote a rather nasty letter to the city council at that time, complaining about the traffic lights that were newly installed at the intersection of Johns Road and Interstate 10. The city of Boerne, their city limits end right at that intersection, right where you got the Carrington Apartments on that would be your east side, and on your west side, you have the Antique Mall. Mm-hmm. If you cross that bridge, you're no longer in the city of Boerne. And TxDOT made the decision, since they regulate Interstate 10 and that bridge, they decided to put traffic lights in there. And this individual wrote this ugly letter and told us how stupid we were for putting those lights in there. And so I wrote him back, and I made him informed. But
in a nice way, right?
In a genteel way. I wasn't I did make a little snarky comment. I was near the end of I think I might have been in my fourth term, and so I wasn't as pleasant as I was in my first term. But he wasn't informed.
Yeah.
And he made a bad decision. And I see this happen every day. I see people make ugly comments or ignorant comments because they're not informed. And sometimes they get away with it. Sometimes you end up with egg on your face. Egg on your face is a very unpleasant thing.
Yeah.
And so it's understanding these small things and understanding how the city can impact you. A lot of people don't know that there are impact fees for putting a shed in your backyard. They don't realize how important and critical it is to vote in local elections, because they're putting people in power that will make decisions that will adversely affect you down the road.
Yeah. So I gather from this discussion that you expect people to know, or would like people to know in more detail, how the local government operates than necessarily the national government. That as the governments get smaller and smaller, people should have a deeper understanding of how it operates, since the smaller they get, the more impact they have on you.
Yeah, I think that's probably a true statement. I want them to have a broad knowledge of all the branches of government and the different levels of government. But I think that to have even a decent understanding of the federal government, but no understanding of the local government is a mistake.
Yeah, and we trend that way.
Yeah. Certainly a lot of your congressmen and senators didn't start off as congressmen or senator. They worked their way up from a city council position to the state house and then on to congressman, right? And so you get to know these people really well if you start paying attention to them at the lower levels.
Yeah. Okay, we've established that people should be informed, and broadly how much they should be informed. How do you go about doing that, other than remembering everything they taught you in high school government? How would you recommend people become informed? Because there really isn't a website that you go to that tells you this is how Boerne operates. You can go to the city website, but I wouldn't recommend it. How would you recommend people get informed to the extent you want?
I would say the first step is going back to that political philosophy that I was talking about earlier. So you figure out who you are, what motivates you, and do that by reading. And if you're not a reader, I would suggest that you become one. And there's a great bookstore in town. Yeah, I thought you would. Yeah. There's this place called the Boerne Bookshop with a lot of great books. But start there. Start by reading books about government. Read books about historical figures. I think that's important. I love history. A lot of people think it's a waste of time. I think it's... There's an old saying about history repeating itself, and it does that over and over again. And one of the reasons it does that is because people aren't learning from it anymore, that they have forgotten things. There's a lot I could say about the present state of both the Democratic and the Republican Party and how they mirror points in history. It doesn't bode well for us, the direction that we're going, that either party is going, right? I'm highly critical of both right now. And you would know this if you were a student of history, even if you just read a little bit about it, right?
You learn to see trends and see how human behaviors evolve and change and deepen in good ways and in bad ways. Yeah.
So, again, we start by reading, and then second, I would say turn off social media.
Yeah.
Turn off Facebook, turn off Nextdoor. I seldom have seen any good advice from either one of those sites. And every now and then somebody will come on there and they're a voice of reason, and then they get drowned out by everybody else. There is nothing, I shouldn't say nothing, that's a sweeping exaggeration, but for the most part, there's not any good coming out of Facebook or Nextdoor. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of discontent, there's a lot of just pot stirrers. There's just not anything good there.
Yeah.
It's not good information.
And you'd think that format would be a way where people could offer solutions and critique solutions and enhance solutions, and people could exchange ideas. You'd think that would be an ideal way for good solutions to percolate up, but it doesn't seem to work that way.
It should be. Yeah. And I was hopeful when Facebook came out that, and even before that, MySpace, I was looking at those sites back then in 2006, whenever it was, that MySpace was relevant, and I thought this could be a good community builder.
Yeah.
It didn't work out that way, and that's unfortunate. But so that's step 2, is it turn off the social media. Step 3 is read a local paper. Yeah. And I think, gosh, and I'm reluctant to say this, but I think the local paper leaves a lot to be desired. I do. And then maybe that comes from being a former councilman, and I sit there and I read the Boerne Star, and I'm like, okay, dig deeper into into that, why council did that. Don't just give a little snippet or two, but dig deeper into why they did it. Actually ask one of the council members why they voted the way they voted. There's not enough information there, but there's some. Beyond the local paper, visit a city website. Visit the Kendall County website. Get information. There's a lot of information there. There's a lot of information on the chamber website. Get information from people, too, that you don't like. Right? Now, this is really hard to do. Let's say that you're one of those people that's dissatisfied with the growth in Kendall County. You think it's just, it's growing like a weed, and we're turning into California. I can't stand this place anymore. Great. Call up the EDC. Find out what they're really doing. Call up the Chamber of Commerce. Call up your local council member and ask them about why a new apartment complex is going in, or why are they mowing down all the trees on this lot over off of I-10? Get the information from somebody you don't like.
Have some conversations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Have some conversations with people you don't like.
Yeah.
Get a different perspective.
Yeah.
If everybody that you're talking to agrees with you, get the heck out of that room. If it's on a social media site, get off that site. We would say on council, we talk about echo chambers. Now, I was always, you and I have talked about this. I'm always nervous about that. It's, okay, I feel this way, or I think this way. And so does the mayor, and so do the other council members, so does the city manager. There's a problem. Yeah. There's something wrong here. Right? We need other voices.
Yeah.
We don't have enough voices in the room if we're all saying the same thing. Can't possibly be right.
Some groups will designate somebody devil's advocate, and their job is to actually push back against it. Even if they don't believe, even if they agree with everybody, they are expected to challenge statements other people make. And that might be a good avenue to try to say, hey, somebody just do it.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that's a great idea. You could rotate the position every meeting and say, okay, you're the devil's advocate. And then they could question things, and other people say, oh, he's just being a devil's advocate. He doesn't hate me.
Right. And I think that would be a great exercise for all of us to do, because it forces you to think outside of a box, and it can prevent you from making some really stupid mistakes.
Yeah.
And I wish I kept all of my emails that I got. The very first email that I ever received as a councilman was from a lady in my district who was upset because her neighbor's cat kept pooping in her garden beds, right? And I'm not disparaging her in any way. My first thought was, and in fact I asked her, have you talked to your neighbor? Have you tried that avenue first? Because that's the easiest avenue to use to fix the problem. But I'm grateful, even though she didn't talk to her neighbor first, I'm grateful that she reached out to me, because in 8 years, I received very few emails, very few phone calls. There were people I know, people that were friends of mine, still friends of mine, that would say bad things about me, or just not about me, but about a decision that I made, that never called me. And I thought, that's strange. Why wouldn't you pick up the phone and say, Ron, you're generally a decent human being. Why are you such a jerk on this one issue? We're friends. We should be able to talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, this is Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back and talk more about getting informed and how to do it. Boerne has its own bookshop. In fact, it's called the Boerne Bookshop. Hi, I'm Dale Adams, inviting you to get lost. Get lost in a good book in our relaxed and casual atmosphere. We have a wide and eclectic selection in the Boerne Bookshop, and we pride ourselves on finding what you're looking for. We do author meet and greets, host writing workshops, and can connect you with a good book club. And your young ones will absolutely love our kids section at the Boerne Bookshop. And while we want you to get lost, we're easy to find, as we're in the heart of Boerne at the back of the Richter Tavern building. We are the Boerne Bookshop. Welcome back to Ceasefire with Dale and Ron, brought to you by the Boerne Bookshop. Today we're talking about getting informed, why you should, and how you do it. And the book this time is not directly related to it, but it's pretty close. It's called Courage is Calling, and it's by Ryan Holiday, and it's the first in his Stoic Virtues series, and it's basically just about go and do it. And what we're talking about is get informed, and that's the first step of going and doing things. And so it's a great book. It's the Boerne Bookshop, and I recommend reading it. In fact, Ron, I think you've read this book, haven't you?
I have.
You've read the whole series.
Oh, there's 3 in the series that are out. There's going to be 4 books.
Right.
I think I've read one other book from Ryan Holiday, so I've read 4 books in total from him, and every now and then he'll have something. There'll be a chapter that I don't entirely agree with. There was, in one of the books, he was talking about a vote that John McCain made that saved Obamacare, and he thought that was a courageous thing, and I thought that's absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Overall, he has a great way of taking stuff from Seneca or Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius and just condensing it down into layman's terms and making it easier to understand. And so I appreciate his writing a lot.
Yeah.
Good books.
He actually has a bookstore, I think in Bastrop or something.
Yeah.
Where's he from?
He's in Bastrop.
Bastrop, yeah. I haven't stopped in there yet. I should sometime.
Yeah, I'd like to do that too.
Yeah.
A road trip.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah. There's a Buc-ee's there, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Let's get back to being informed. Okay, so you want people to read and go to websites, have conversations.
Yeah, talk to the other side.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
And then here's the counterpoint I was thinking about earlier. When you started the show, like I told you, I immediately had some counterpoints coming to mind. There is a point where you've gone too far.
Yeah.
And you can do this in any part of your life, but there are people who spend every waking hour talking about politics.
Yeah.
And that is
I don't know any of those.
Oh gosh, yeah. This is the exact opposite of what I'm talking about. Yeah, there's getting informed, and then there's just becoming this sort of diarrhea mouth of politics, where it encompasses every part of your life, and you're no longer a person that any normal person wants to hang out with, right? I'm asking you to get informed. I'm not telling you to become the Encyclopedia Britannica of all things local government.
Do you think that people that go too far, that the problem with that is they end up going down all these rabbit holes that don't really exist, and they get distracted and lose sight of what's really going on? Do you think there's some of that goes on, or they just...
I don't know if it's that so much as I think it's there is something about them that's unhappy, or that they're unsatisfied in some way. There's a bitterness in them, and they become possessed by this. And there are some people that I've seen locally who I would liken to Don Quixote, and every elected official is the new windmill that they go after, and it becomes almost like a sport. We got to get rid of this person. They're no good. They put the new person in. 4 years later, that person's got to go. They're no good. We got to put a new person in. They are looking for an ideal that just does not exist in humans.
Yeah,
it just doesn't. There's no. I'm a Christian. I'm broken. I think we're all broken. There's no perfect person other than Christ. And so if you start looking for that perfection, you're not going to find it. You're always going to be dissatisfied. People are going to let you down. And I think if you go in with high expectations for these people, you're almost idolizing them. You're putting them up on a pedestal, and then they disappoint you on a vote or two.
Yeah.
And you don't talk to them because now you're mad at them. And so now you want to wash them away and put somebody else in there, and guess what? It's going to happen again.
Yeah.
It's going to happen over and over again.
I think some of that, what you're talking about, is perspective and keeping balance. And people need to realize that when they sit down at the dinner table with their family, that's the big part of their life.
Right.
That's big. Government is important, and it plays a role, but things need to be kept in their proper perspective and balance, and government should never be the dominant force in anybody's life. We used to have what we call them citizen statesmen. People work their whole life, and then they go and they do a couple of terms here or there in some form of government, and then they'd go back to their life, and it didn't possess them the way it does today when you have career politicians who, like you said, start out at city council, and that's their life, and then they go on, and all their life is consumed by politics.
Right.
And then we have laymen that get consumed also, even though that's not their job. And so we need to keep a perspective there. Yeah, give some balance.
But I'll say this, those people that do get, I don't want to use the word possessed, but I don't know what other word to use, obsessed with politics, end up being some of the best ground workers for polls or for campaigns. And so it reminds me of something I learned a long time ago, that it takes all kinds of people, and those people are the people that are going to go door knocking and volunteering and get people signed up and registered to vote.
That's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because it is true. We do need all types of people. And even though we've talked about people shouldn't get obsessed, you do need some. Mm-hmm. Society needs groups of people that are obsessed or overly concerned about all different issues. And so we do need those voices. So everything is a gray area. But that's an excellent point, is we do need those. And I wonder sometimes if we need those now more than we used to, because elected officials are voted on by such large populations now. Mm-hmm. It used to be you knew who you were voting for. You actually knew them. And nowadays, you don't, because our congressional districts are huge, 500,000 people. Yeah. Or more now.
Yeah.
It's harder to make politics as personal as it used to be.
Right.
Now with the huge numbers involved.
Questions while I'm on the hot seat?
No, I think you did good. I think you had a great balance of what being informed was about versus too much, and gave some good ideas on how to get informed. made a good case for it. Thank
And
you
I
very
did it
much.
all without notes. Lexi is happy with
Awesome.
me today.
Yes, well done. Well done. I'm grateful for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you. It was a
that.
good conversation. So that's it for today for Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. And if you missed any of it, you can go to the BoerneRadio.com website and listen to our podcast. And we will see you next week. Boerne has its own bookshop. In fact, it's called the Boerne Bookshop. Hi, I'm Dale Adams, inviting you to get lost. Get lost in a good book in our relaxed and casual atmosphere. We have a wide and eclectic selection in the Boerne Bookshop. And we pride ourselves on finding what you are looking for. We do author meet and greets, host writing workshops, and can connect you with a good book club. And your young ones will absolutely love our kids section at the Boerne Bookshop. And while we want you to get lost, we're easy to find, as we're in the heart of Boerne at the back of the Richter Tavern building. We are the Boerne Bookshop.